Good evening and welcome to the February 2nd, 2010 meeting of the Sammamish City Council. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll?
Mayor Don Jones.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Nancy Wilson. Here. Councilmember Mark Cloud.
Present.
Councilmember John Curley.
Present.
Councilmember John James.
Present.
Councilmember Tom Odell.
Present.
Councilmember Skyline Student Liaison Ben Suey.
Present.
Okay. We're going to have a flag presentation by Rainbow Camp Fire Girls 3rd grade, Blackwell Elementary. Let's stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of
America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, 3rd grade Blackwell Elementary. Next is public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to address the council. 3-minute limit per person or 5 minutes if representing the official position of a recognized community organization. Madam Clerk? And if you haven't signed up, you can, after the list here, I'll call for others. Okay, first up is the Discovery Elementary 4th graders.
Hi, we are 4th graders from Discovery Elementary. My name is Jessica Glinner. My name is Zena. Hello. My name is Annie Tang.
And my name is Cole Harrinan. And my name is Matthew Sindrick.
We are going to talk to you about the killdeer in our wetland, the off-leash dog problem, and the Adopt a Wetland program.
The killdeer are a type of bird that camouflage with the gravel where they nest. The killdeer nest on the ground, not in trees. We're helping them nest by building 3 nesting boxes because they didn't nest successfully last year, and we want as many different kinds of plants and animals as possible in our wetland. We wanted to tell you that the public gate to Discovery Wetland is locked.
We asked the school district if we can lock the public gate to the Discovery Wetland, and they said yes. We want to lock the gate because people are coming in with their dogs and letting them run off-leash. Then the dogs end up disturbing the killdeer by trampling their nest and scaring the killdeer.
We are also going to post no dog signs on the boardwalk fence around our wetland.
Now, Cole and I are going to talk to you about the Adopt a Wetland program.
We are making this program because we need people to monitor the killdeer and make sure no dogs are in the wetland.
We are hoping that any community group, club will sign up for the Adopt a Wetland program so people can take care of the nesting box when we leave 4th grade.
Now Matthew will hand out flyers which tell more about the Adopt a Wetland program. Thanks for listening.
That's a wonderful presentation, and it's really a great wetland. And I'm sorry that the gate has to be locked, but We enjoyed it while the gate was open. I assume that at formal functions at the school, the public will come and look at the wetland, huh? And maybe when you have killdeer? Great, thank you very much. Next on the public comment is Jim Walker.
I'm not as prepared as these people were today, and I'm going to be very brief. I want to start off with a question.
Could you give your address, please?
Yeah, my name is Jim Walker. I'm at 24116 Southeast 37th Place in Issaquah. And I wanted to ask a question first. Is the city still pursuing obtaining or taking over ownership of the King County Park in Klahani?
Well, this is public comment, but the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. I've been a resident of Klahani, your neighbor, for 22 years, and I live very close to that park, and we've enjoyed that park. Thousands of us have in that area. It's a great park, really low-keyed, quiet, in a bedroom community. I attended a meeting last week in a very packed little clubhouse of over 100 people. Imagine all these chairs filled up and then 20 or 30 people still standing. And we are passionately opposed to the idea of your taking over this and from our neighborhood, and then putting this it's going to be a very obvious sports complex in our community. I'm probably the only person here, but I'm telling you, there's a great deal of opposition. There was over 100 people. I've never seen any meeting like that before. And I know there's over 500 people in Klahani that have signed a petition for our association to take over ownership. And I believe I read that you said, someone from the city of Sammamish said that they would, if Klahani stepped up and took over ownership of that from the county, that you would step back from that and honor our desire to own it. And I'm just hoping that you would honor that commitment.
I don't think we made that commitment. I think you were talking with the county, and the county's decision, it's up to them. We first talked with the city of Issaquah, since it's in Issaquah's planned annexation area, and they weren't interested in maintaining it. Our citizens also use that park, and it's right on our border at Southeast 32nd. So we felt that we could step up and maintain that park. Now, in the early discussions, I think what's happened is that a plan has circulated showing artificial turf lighted sports field. That's a concept plan. Since then, we've talked within our community here, and there are several other priorities in terms of improving sports fields long before Klahani Park would be improved. And if we took over the park and actually thought about putting in a sports field there, it would certainly have an open community discussion long before a decision was made. So we have to be careful on the rumor mills. It's a wonderful park. I've walked through it often. And we're not talking about taking over for the exclusion of Klahani and for the advantage of Sammamish. It's a county park used by everybody, just as our parks and our sports fields. I don't know if you saw the letter to the editor in the paper this week where Klahani residents said that they were delighted in the fact that Sammamish had improved the sports fields at the two high schools, and that the soccer and the lacrosse clubs could be using those sports fields. That's used by Klahani residents also, and Issaquah residents. They're open to everybody. And so it's not like we're coming in taking over your property. So I'm sorry that these rumors abound and that we don't have open discussions. But we're waiting to see what Klahani and the county decides. But we've gone forward with the county and said we are willing to take it over and maintain it. And that's all I can give. Mr. City Manager, do you have anything further?
No, Mr. Mayor, that you articulated very well. It stemmed from the issue that when county came up with the list of parks to be closed and due to their financial problems. And Klahani is one of those parks. And we did, as Mayor articulated, ask the Issaquah to step up the plate to take over because it's a public park. It's being used by Klahani residents as well as Sammamish and Issaquah residents, just as our parks, as Mayor said, is being used by Klahani. We see this as a whole community, and it's a community asset. And Council's direction was that we don't want this park to be closed. We want park to be maintained properly, so we convey that message to the county. And but as unfortunately, as Mayor said, there's lots of rumors are going out there. The good intentions of Sammamish is being somehow being interpreted or translated to something else. There is no other intentions of this council. Council's intent is to keep the park open and maintain and keep it in the public ownership.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have a $2.4 million budget from our association dues. We can well afford the maintenance of this park, and we intend to keep it in Klahani for the benefit of everyone here, just as it always has been since the inception of Klahani. So, thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Janice Sile.
Hi there, my name is Janice Sile, and I live at 2319 West Beaver Lake Drive Southeast in Sammamish. And I'm here to talk about transparency in the government. And I believe that if you build a foundation, if you lose transparency in government, you build a foundation of lack of trust, gridlock, and the population just stops believing in the plot process. And the reason I bring that up is because I've been involved in all the meetings for the Beaver Lake master plan process from the first minute. And back in December, I went to a meeting of the Parks Commission with a presentation that showed physical pictures beside their little drawings, and presented it and asked at that time Jesse when they were going to be presenting it to the master plan to the council, and I was told, well, they're not going to be presenting it because we don't have our new members in, and that's what I was told. And I'm also on a notification list, and I also did not get notification that that plan was to be presented. So I kind of feel like it was presented in the middle of the night. Way back when, in the very, very first meeting that I went to for the master plan process, I asked Jessie, I said, well, why are you putting a sewer connectivity in this plan? And she said, now this is before anything has been presented, she said, well, that's because we're going to be tearing out the parking lot. And I thought that that was pretty interesting, since the community had voted on the sewer connectivity just 2 years before. And so I thought that was very much of a surprise and kind of a preconceived notion. So I was upset about the lack of notification, public notification. So I decided to look a little bit back about this public survey that you guys did. Now, back in 2008, we had a population of 40,179 people. And I noticed that 223 people responded to this plan. And then I started looking further, and then I noticed that a big portion of this talked about lacrosse fields and how they like to practice lacrosse in the park and all this. Well, my son's been the varsity lacrosse goalie for the past 4 years at Skyline, and we have never once practiced lacrosse in Beaver Lake Park. So clearly, the survey was loaded with lobbyists, comments from less than 0.5% of the population, which I find that to be a little bit disturbing. I also was noticing that when you go on the line and you look at Beaver Lake, you'll notice that, like if you go to look about the shoreline regulations that are coming into play, and you will notice that the poster child for the shorelines and everything is the shoreline at Beaver Lake Park. Now, you cannot, and I noticed maybe the rush to push this into the permit process is because if you get the permits on this, then you can take down all those trees before the regulations go into effect, because there's a 200-foot setback on that, and these trees are all within that 200 feet. Never once have I seen anybody go out and talk to an arborist to talk about things that we can do to preserve and protect what we have. I kind of get this kind of slash and tear. We're going to be putting in bathrooms and we're going to be doing this and that. Not once has common sense preservation come into this process from the beginning. And I'm really, really concerned when department heads give misinformation and have preconceived notions. And so I want to thank you for listening, and it's so nice to see all the kids. My son was also graduated of Discovery Elementary School, so they raise good kids. So thank you for listening.
Okay, Janice, I don't think you should be as concerned as you were representing. First of all, the survey, if it was only 227 people, I don't think it was a statistically significant survey where you take random surveys. And so that doesn't mean that, like you said, the whole community agrees with what the survey results are. The other thing is the Shoreline Master Program is at the state, and the 200-foot you were talking about is the setback from shorelines at which 80% of the trees have to be preserved if that gets approved, and that certainly will be approved before we take down any trees in Beaver Lake Park. So I don't think you have to worry about that. The lacrosse comment, well, I haven't seen that comment about them using it as a practice field. Those are baseball fields, and I don't know if they use them for lacrosse or not.
Sometimes they interchangeably use it.
Well, I'm in the park every day. My son plays. But along those lines, if you wait long enough, like it's been happening in the past 10 years, you won't have to worry about the trees on the shoreline at all, because they'll all be dead between the beavers and the mass trampling that's going on in there. They've been completely ignored this whole time. And you know what? Beaver Lake is one of the best fishing lakes in the whole area. People that I work with in the city of Seattle know about Beaver Lake for its fishing. So we should be protecting those trees and those fish habitats instead of thinking about 4 days in the summer when we can swim.
Well, I agree. And Beaver Lake is stocked every year from the Issaquah hatchery, so they have a very good state stocking program. So, yes, it is a good fishing lake. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment this evening? No? Seeing none? Public yes?
Sorry, I'm not, just a real quick comment. I'm sorry I'm late.
Okay.
My name's Dave Ross.
Come on, step up to the microphone. Name and address, please.
Dave Ross. I'm at 24224 Southeast 44th Street in Klahani. And I just found out about the meeting and was concerned about the Klahani Park situation. I probably missed some earlier speakers, but it seems like we were given information from our board that it was pretty much a done deal, that there was nothing that could be done, that it was just going to be taken over. And it seems like it's more complicated than that, and there may have been some missteps or misunderstandings in the beginning, but I just feel like it's important to get a consensus from the people that live there, and I've been there for 15 years, and it's a good community, and we are concerned about the growth and the lights and probably the stuff you've heard before, the tower going up, and I think it's important that since it's our community, that we have say in what happens, and that it seems like things are going real fast, and I just wanted to have my voice heard. I know a lot of people feel this way. I didn't prepare anything much, but I know the Citizens for Klahani have a lot of information they've been working on, and I don't know if they were here to speak, but...
Yes, someone was here earlier. I appreciate you coming. What tower are you referring to?
Oh, there's a clear wire tower that's that I've heard is going to be put up by the park, and
that would be the county then that's making that decision, I would guess, because it's not in the city of Sammamish, so it wouldn't be a Sammamish decision.
Well, it depends on where the tower is being located. If it's in the park, it's obviously the county, but if it's on the city rights of way, it's the city. So So I don't know the details on that, Mr. Mayor, so I don't know which particular tower is being talked at this point.
I do know there was a meeting a few weeks ago with the Homeowners Association, and Kathy Lambert, our county councilwoman, came out there and took information, and they said they were going to work with the Homeowners Association. So whatever the county and Klahani works out, I mean, hey, it's a wonderful community. I agree. Klahani's a wonderful community. I love walking there myself.
Right.
And we hope to be good neighbors. And
Well, good. Yeah, I think that's good to hear. I think it was just a concern that it would get overdeveloped too fast, and we wouldn't have local representation for those that live right in that immediate area, and it could be a lot more noise and traffic, and possibly, it just would change the complexion of what we like so much. And so hopefully, anyway, I'll have more prepared and maybe send a letter, and just was hoping you were paying attention and having the good input from people that are concerned about it.
thank you for coming. We appreciate the input.
Thanks a lot.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the council? Nope, seeing none. We'll go on to approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Next are student liaison reports, and it looks like just Skyline High School. Ben?
So, second semester just started in Skyline, which means finals are over. And the school ASB is working towards our new event, which is Tolo. And so this week, all week, we're doing Tolo events to get the school spirited, as well as interacting with the community.
What is Tolo?
Tolo is pretty much like Sadie Hawkins. The girls ask the guys, and then it's informal dance, and it's a big riot, I guess. Everyone has a lot of fun. Several members of ASB are planning future events such as Camper Kyla, which is recruiting high school students to become counselors for a week during the year for fifth graders at Challenger. And it's a great way to offer something to the community, as well as set an example towards future students of Skyline. So some students also just went to Sacramento for a theater acting competition at Linnea and placed first and second, so we're very proud of them. And a new play, a musical called My Fair Lady, auditions are being held right now, so that'll be played to the public, I guess, in April. And winter sports are just ending, so spring sports are going to resume, I guess. So, yeah.
Good, thanks, Ben. A question for you. Your math club that won the state,
Oh, yeah, Math Club won state.
can you ask them to contact me so that we can have a discussion at council sometime?
Sure. I'm good friends with the president, so definitely.
Be careful, the mayor may
Ben.
do an online test here.
Don't do that.
What? Don't do it? Why?
It's a trap, Ben. It's a test.
I'm losing
It's a trap.
control here. John, Tom pointed out that we should have a motion to excuse Councilmember Petiti for personal reasons.
So move.
Second?
Been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
By your vote of 6-0, Councilmember Petiti is excused. And Ben, you're excused too.
Thank you.
Fun Tolo.
Oh, thanks. I will.
Next is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes the approval of claims for the period ending February 2nd in the amount of $625,401.67. Ordinance number 2010-276, which is the second reading, creating an equipment rental fund in accordance with RCW 35.21.088. A resolution accepting the Sammamish Commons Park, the Phase 2B Lower Sammamish Commons Access and Parking Project as complete, which is Resolution 2010-403. The 2010 recycling grants, the King County Waste Reduction and Recycling Grant Program, the King County Health Department Local Hazardous Waste Management Plan Grant, and the Washington State Department of Ecology Coordinated Prevention Grant. And item number 5, the contract for recycling events with Olympic Environmental. Item number 6 is approval of the January 12th special meeting / study session minutes. Item number 7 is the January 19th regular minutes. And item number 8 is finally the second reading vacating unopened Thomas Alexander Road and Old Monahan Road right-of-way in the 1100 through 1400 blocks of East Lake Sammamish Parkway Southeast. That's ordinance 2010-277. And before we vote on that, was there anybody here that wanted to comment on that particular ordinance? No, there hasn't been anybody in the last couple meetings commenting on it. The homeowners were working out an agreement, and they finally got it worked out.
Yes.
And that's, okay, so that's the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote of 6-0, the consent agenda is approved. Next, there's no unfinished business, so we come to new business, which is a contract for sustainability strategy with O'Brien and Company. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the council's goals for staff was to focus on sustainability and see what are the things that we can do in our community. I asked our community development director to be the contact on this particular objective. So he's been leading this process not only internally but also coordinating with the 6 other cities, what they call now as the C7 cities on the east side. They were successfully solicit a grant application and got the grant applications. And as part of that application, that we need to do a study. So at this juncture, without getting into too much details, I'm going to turn it over to our Community Development Director, Cameron Giral, to give a comprehensive overview. Cameron?
Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate the introduction. Being passed out at the City Council are 2 things right now. A list of some of our sustainability efforts that we have already got underway, and also a little kind of a front and back piece on that C7 group that Ben mentioned. That's for your reference later. I will go through a handful of PowerPoint slides, and that's really the bulk of my presentation here tonight. So let me go ahead and get started. My goal is tonight to give you an overview of the sustainability efforts that the city has already accomplished to date, including a vision statement that was adopted last year and a list of some of the staff work. That's one of the things I just passed out. Discuss some of the key elements of our sustainability work program for 2010, talk about the grant resources that Ben mentioned. You do have an action item on your agenda here tonight, which is to approve or authorize Ben to sign a contract for some consultant services, and then answer any questions the council has. 2 slides here talking about the sustainability vision for Sammamish. We talked about this with the City Council last year. I put this into a couple of bullet points and illustrated this with a picture of our time capsule. So thinking about sustainability is one of the things where we think long term, as we did with the time capsule.
That's a good connection.
So just to summarize, the goal is to become an environmentally and economically sustainable community by crafting and implementing an achievable, multifaceted, and measurable strategy. We're going to maximize opportunity and efficiency and to minimize cost. And then the second part of that is to continue the progress that we've already made on issues of local importance and help contribute toward larger regional and global goals such as mitigating the effects of climate change and make our community an even better place to live, work, and play. Here's some of our current efforts. I handed out the list. I've chosen these ones, roughly 10 of these that are up on the screen right now, in no particular order. Many of these have been in place from the early days of the city. Tree retention has been around for a number of years. City Council adopted a low-impact development ordinance in 2008, I believe. You heard from us recently about some of the native plant salvage work that's been done recently. There's basin planning that's been going on for a number of years. The city manager instituted a fuel and idle policy for city vehicles, and also provided a budget directive for directors in coming up with budgets and using our budgets. We are to look at sustainable options, so purchasing materials, etc. I know our Public Works has been working with King County Metro to try to improve transit service. That's something that's sorely still lacking out here on the plateau. We hold community recycling events. You may remember a very successful Sustainable September event last September 2nd, if I recall. It happened on the same evening as one of our farmers markets, and we're going to try to do that again this coming September. Really enjoyable event and well received by the public. We are meeting right now in a LEED Silver building. You're going to be working even more on improving bikeways and paths. You've joined the Cascade Agenda Cities program, and there's many others on that list that I handed out. So we'll be taking note of these current efforts and continuing them on, but also building on that current work and hopefully incorporating in this new strategy a variety of additional things. We will need the council's guidance on the vision and the goals. You're going to have your hand on the steering wheel in that regard. We'll need the direction and oversight from the city manager to make sure we stay in alignment. A big part of this process will be to involve our broader community and helping them help refine and tailor the strategy to Sammamish. We can't just take, say, the city of Mukilteo's strategy off the shelf and say we'll just use that for Sammamish. It's got to be tailored for us. We will learn from the experience of peer cities, Shoreline, Mount Lake Terrace, Mercer Island. A number of them have probably gotten a little farther down this path, and they've probably hit a few potholes too. So we want to keep an eye on those and learn from them and take from them what we can. We will be working with both the Planning and Parks Commissions, and then, as I mentioned, contributions and implementation from your staff and from all the city volunteers and residents that work to make this happen every day. We like to think about sustainability in kind of a three-legged fashion. You know, often hear about three-legged stools or other things, sometimes three-legged dogs. But we think about sustainability both most commonly with environment, but also economic and social. We want to have sustainable approaches and our community to be stable and sustainable from all three of those approaches. We'd like to see if those elements can take from each of those legs and incorporating into the overall strategy. So a good strategy always has these four pieces that I've shown in bold there: goals, strategies, actions, and then benchmarks. We want to have something very specific, we want it to be measurable, and we want it to relate to the goal that you're trying to achieve for the city. Again, maximizing the use of our current resources. We'll probably have this strategy in essentially two formats. One for the city as an organization ourselves, and the list I gave you listed mostly things that the city itself does. We may also be able, and I'd like us to get to the point where we can talk about things that the community at large can undertake. And we'll be looking at partnerships, perhaps with the school districts, Chamber of Commerce, and other entities as we go forward on this process. What will we get as a product? We need an actual product out of a consultant contract. Well, it'll be a published document. We'll probably publish it online as one of the sustainability mechanisms itself and on CD, but we'll probably publish it a little bit in paper too. That will describe all those goals, objectives, and the elements. It needs to be user-friendly so we can really make it widely used, easy to understand. It should work with our existing comp plan and our shoreline master program and public works standards and things like that. And what I call this is that it's a very useful lens for decision making. It doesn't make a decision for you, doesn't force you into a particular outcome, but it's a lens through which to view a particular set of choices. And hopefully in that lens it will help us to make good sustainable choices onto the future. Ben mentioned that we did get a federal grant of a modest $135,000 through one of the federal block grant programs. Here's how that grant has been split up. You can see most of that, almost half of it, we're using for hybrid vehicle upgrades. The city's vehicle fleets, many of them are coming to the end of their useful lives, so we're looking to replace those with a combination of our own funds and then the increment of cost that is necessary to purchase the hybrid functionality will be taken care of by the grant. We are looking at some additional building energy upgrades either to this facility or the new maintenance shop. We'll be partnering with Puget Sound Energy and that C7 group on the home energy reports. Ben and probably about 400 or 500 other people in the greater Puget Sound area have been part of a test case where they get those home energy reports now. This grant will allow us to expand that greatly to about 4,000 households in Sammamish.
I'm still doing excellent, Cameron.
And I think Ben, not only, I've been to his house, I know he keeps a very good house in very good order with things turned off when they should be turned off. I think one of his other strategies for reducing energy use is that he's rarely away from City Hall. So that's one of the things he's doing.
Except Friday afternoons, I heard on the radio something about.
You know, that was it.
Just keep going. Go ahead, Cameron.
I'm sure there's an interesting story there that
there's an in-house story to that one.
that we'll save for
Let me
another
just
time.
tell, basically, the council member Curley was broadcasting on the radio at 4 o'clock that apparently he announced to the world that I was not in my office. And I, in fact, was in my office, and the mayor heard about it, so he was checking on me about 4:45.
And I don't think Ben has a radio in his office. A couple of bullet points I'd note up there. We did allocate $15,000 to help us actually do the paperwork for the grant. Most federal grants, as you know, are very labor intensive, and so we've actually reserved a portion of the money to do that. Turns out we were able to do this with in-house resources, so that's why I say we can redirect those funds, and we are optimistic that we can redirect the funds that we had set aside for ongoing administration and monitoring. Given the types of uses we're putting the money to, the monitoring requirements should be relatively straightforward. So we're hoping to take $20,000 that we would have spent on essentially what you'd call overhead and put it into a direct service or tangible products. So I'll be working with Ben about where we send that, either to some of the things that are on the list there or something else. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
What is the fuel and the idling? What's the fuel and the idling plan or policy?
Fuel and idling policy is to try to minimize fuel consumption wherever we can by linking trips and making sure that you don't do individual trips, and also to reduce vehicle idling, which is both a fuel use and an air quality problem. There are times when you've all seen the sort of, well, here's the utility truck that's sitting in the parking lot just idling while the guy eats his lunch. Those kinds of things, I think, have happened in other cities around central Puget Sound, and we wanted to make sure that that didn't happen in Sammamish. So Ben's directive is when the truck is parked, and these days with modern engines, you don't need to keep it idling, you don't need to warm it up very long. Those engines work very well with a very minimum of necessary idling, so that's the directive to do that.
Thank you.
You bet. And then the last thing on the list there you can see is the $25,000 for this sustainability strategy plan. We put that in two buckets. One is $20,000 for consultant services, and then a contingency of about $5,000. I think that's a wise move in this case, given that we'll be working with the public and we don't know exactly what kind of input we will get and how extensive that process will be. That gives us some latitude to expand either the public process or some other element of our strategy as public needs demand. And we've done those kinds of things on other consultant contracts in the past. So that's what's in front of you. So what are the next steps? Authorize the city manager to go ahead and sign the contract with O'Brien and Company. Just to mention, O'Brien has worked with several other Central Puget Sound jurisdictions. We went through a very extensive selection process with, I think, 6 different firms that had proposed to work with the city. Each of them would have been very good selections, so O'Brien rose to the top out of a very competitive pool. We will be back talking with you about policy goals and strategies through regular reports. You can anticipate something at least when I do the quarterly report and then on an as-needed basis elsewise. And then other community involvement. Our goal will be to try to get out to the community late spring or early summer with probably a series of different events. And again, just bringing you back to the vision statement, this is success as we have defined it last year in talking with the council last year, and I've just, again, summarized these things in just a handful of bullet points. This strategy will help us stay on that road to success. And now I'm happy to take any other questions.
Tom?
Cameron, first of all, I want to applaud the overall objective of this program, and I got my own utility bill the other day, opened it up, and promptly decided I was going to start by having a somewhat reduced display at Christmas next year. Seriously, I think this is great for the city to be doing. I do have some concerns, though. First of all, I think that by doing this, we will be stepping up in a fashion to address some of the budget issues we've been talking about, and this could be a part and parcel of it. But as I looked through the deliverables in the work statement, I was struck by a couple of things. First of all, I didn't see a plan for implementing what comes out of this whole process here. And maybe there isn't one that's a TBD item. In that case, that's fair. But I'm wondering what the consultant will do that may not be capable of being done in-house, perhaps with the help of some citizens. We had an awful lot of people apply to things like the Planning Commission, and we weren't able to accommodate them all. And I'm wondering if maybe there could be some sort of informal group put together that could actually brainstorm some of these issues for us. And maybe the consultant would be useful as a facilitator, maybe not. I'm just posing the question for it. Again, as we're looking downstream, we all need to keep an eye on the cost structure of the city. And while some of these projects are great, we need to be very cognizant of the ongoing cost to the city of some of these good ideas. So is there something I'm missing in terms of implementation, or is that still a TBD?
No, it's not a TBD. That's part of the process to develop this strategy, is both identify the goals, the strategies, the specific actions. Those are the implementation pieces that we would need to undertake. And then I think it will still be the council that helps prioritize those actions. We will probably have more actions than we can either afford to, either time or resources, do. And so the council will need to, I think, help prioritize and select those top priority actions. So that's another place where the council, I think, grabs the steering wheel and says, okay, of this strategy in year 1, let's say, we'll focus on these, and we may get to those in year 3 or year 5. So yeah, you will get a list of implementation actions, and then you can select.
Okay.
Mark?
I wanted to support the idea here. I think we are running a relatively lean organization, and if we do have additional tasks like sustainability as a policy area that we'd like to consider and work in, I think we do need to have some outside help. I would also say that the thing about sustainability that's important to me is that it gives us a chance, all of us, to think across disciplines, traffic, pedestrians, drainage, water quality, energy, and to think about ideas that sort of bridge and include several of those different kinds of things. And I think that'll allow us, the citizens, to give us ideas that maybe not fit one of our neat silos, but allow us to do some things across some of the silos of government that will both break down the silos, but also help us do things better in the future. Particularly like when our town center plan, there may be ideas that we'll want to incorporate there. I'm particularly hopeful that how we handle water quality at the town center is going to be one of those goal settings that will show have a sustainability standpoint. And for me, sustainability really is just thinking out multi-generations, leaving the place better than we found it. So I'm going to support this, and I do support the idea of us keeping an eye on consultants and how much we spend on them, but unless we had something else we're ready to take off the table, I think we have to be ready to spend some money to get these products.
John and then John.
Cameron, what was the total amount of the grant that we received?
$135,000 for the total.
What percentage do we usually spend for consultants? Is there a rule of thumb? You know, when you give to a charity, you know, you look at how much money goes in versus how much you have to support the operation. How did $20,000 come up?
Well, $20,000 came up a couple of different ways. One, with Ben's guidance, we focused the grant resources on tangible products, and I'm going to ask Melanie to bring the breakdown of the costs back up here. And so if you look at 60,000, those are vehicles, 10,000 building energy upgrades, that's 70,000 of the 135. We have the 15 and the 5 to play with. Those could go towards any number of other things, but they could be going towards, again, tangible things you can feel and touch. That was a strong directive from the city manager to make sure that we got tangible products out of this. The home energy reports are mostly for the benefit of residents so that they can reduce their own home energy use. That's information that they can use, and then there are follow-up resources where they can gain access to more information through Puget Sound Energy or other providers so that they can reduce their own costs and their own impacts. The consultant is for the broader sustainability planning effort. We very purposefully kept that to, I don't know what the percentage is there, but it's 25 over 135, so 15%, something along those lines of the total budget for an overall plan. I would put that in context that, I have all of these memorized, but peer cities are typically spending 2 to 3 times that amount for these same kinds of things. Not everybody. There are some cities that are spending close to what we are, but many of them are spending in the 40, 50, sometimes $75 or $80,000 because they have a very elaborate planning process. We've tried to have a very narrow one. So I'm not sure I can equate it to your charity and the overhead. I don't think that's a really good analog, but I can tell you that's the thought process. And Ben may want to add to that.
Well, maybe I could ask the question, was this a competitive bid, or did we say who is willing to do the work for 20 plus a $5,000 contingency?
Maybe I can just jump in here, John, to help you, and you were asking some good questions. And, typically for design projects, either building or roads, we go about a 15%. I want to make sure that this is clear. We're not using this consultant to purchase the hybrid vehicles and et cetera, so it's kind of a different ball game. That's what Cameron is trying to explain, that we're not hiring this consultant to implement the stuff that about 85 to 90% of this grant money is corresponding to. What this one is, there are other things that we can do to be more sustainable in this community, that we can do that here at the City Hall, we can do with our operations, we can do that with the public safety vehicles, public safety operations. What are those things? And those things don't have to be expensive. Those actually should help us to save money. For example, we just implemented the sensors in some of our offices here, that the light sensors. That way that we don't have to keep the lights on all night. So when there's nobody here after 5:30 or 6 o'clock.
Or 4 o'clock.
Or 4 o'clock. And we just basically turn the lights off. And then we also have some suggestions. For example, somebody came up with that the solar power, that what kind of energy that would generate. You know, it would give us an opportunity to look into those things. So it is a good thing in the long run. I think, again, I want to emphasize this. This doesn't have to be expensive. The things that we can do, common sense things that we can do, the things that we can also encourage our citizens, and citizens encourage us too. It's a two-way street. See, to do that, to make sure that not only we save money, but we become a sustainable community.
Councilmember Curley.
Thanks. Is this part of the 137, this is part of the stimulus program?
It is.
I mean, I'm just expectorating into the wind. It doesn't mean anything. I'm just a tiny voice. But it sickens me when you read in the paper that we have historic debt. We continue to take this money. And I've read about the O'Brien Group. They're terrific. And they do great work. And I guess we cannot not take the money. But it just seems sad that my kids, my son probably more than my daughter because he'll probably make more money, will have to pay this off later on in life with an enormous debt that we're saddling our grandkids with. So that said, I wanted to know what the O'Brien Group did for Kirkland. I saw that they did some work for Kirkland. Do you know what they did, Cameron?
They've been doing very similar efforts like this. I can't quote exactly on Kirkland, but I'm
They
happy
loved
to
them.
follow
I
up.
read their website, and apparently they were raving about them.
They did, and we did our reference checks. It was uniformly positive. I think we had provided references by Shoreline and Mount Lake Terrace. I'd have to check on Kirkland specifically, but they do a similar type of work for cities that we're asking them to do in our case here. In each case, the city tailors it to its own kind of direct purposes and needs. Some cities, as Ben said, would be focused, let's say, on energy use as a really strong thing. Others might be focused on traffic reduction or something else. So we're using them because they've got tremendous expertise and experience in the field. They've got a great track record of working with cities to come up with tangible, relevant products. And just to close the loop on Councilmember James's questions, when we do bids like this, we come up with an estimate of what the project should cost. Oftentimes, we get consultants coming back saying, oh, you can only do this for twice that cost, and they want us to go find the other money. We stuck with the original estimate. In fact, I bumped it down from the original estimates. So, like I said, I think when we stack us up against peer cities, we're spending about half of what others are spending right now.
Nancy?
I don't look at sustainability as primarily being economically or financially based. I do think it's really important to think of long-term savings and to look at the fact that some of these won't pan out financially, but still probably need to be done. But others will ultimately save money, and from a much larger viewpoint, like energy consumption, the more we can get away from an oil-based economy, the better our whole country will be. But that doesn't necessarily justify it in my mind. But going back to a specific project, we're doing the maintenance shop project. When has that started? Has that contract been let?
It has. And
Is there something we can do at this stage to make that building sustainable? I don't think there's anything. There's no green roof. There's no geothermal. There's no solar. There's no. I'm sure there's some energy, but I remember it came up time and again, at least 2 or 3 times. Kathy in particular brought it up. I'd much rather see our money being put into making that project sustainable and be a prototype for some of this stuff than just to hire a consultant and go out. I mean, I'm sure we could retrofit it at this stage when it's not done to make it sustainable. I don't think it is. I mean, I'm very proud the City Hall is a LEED building. This certainly won't be LEED, but so
well, I'd be happy to give you a more thorough report. Ben may have some comments on the M&O shop and the.
Well, we'd be happy to give you another report to the council. I thought we'd give a comprehensive report on the maintenance shop. We went through that with the council. Council told us to work with the Puget Sound. We were doing some environmentally very friendly infrastructure there in terms of the parking surfaces. We're using the pervious concrete, pervious asphalt. We're trying to minimize the clearing to the absolute bare minimum. And we're doing some internal stuff within the building that is also very environmental friendly. But what I said, and the council directed us basically to see if we can do some additional work with Puget Sound Energy to get some of the lighting issues to make it more sustainable. So to that end, we actually been working with the Puget Sound Energy. We've been doing those kind of addition stuff. Now, if the council direction to me, stop the project and bring it back again here, and then we do additional stuff, I'll be happy to do that, but I'm not quite sure that would be a wise move on our part right now in the midst of the construction project is taking place.
that would be my druthers. I mean, but things like solar energy for hot water and things are supposed to be so cost efficient.
Well, at this point, we've already let the contract, haven't we?
We did. We awarded the contract. Prior to the contract award, we had this discussion with the council. Council gave us a direction. We implemented those directions to what we got. Now, again, it's your pleasure. If you wanted to bring it back, obviously there will be some cost associated with that thing, and I would not recommend that we do that. And we just basically proceed with that.
Ben, a thought, very
Yes.
quickly. I've been working with Sevda on the maintenance shop, and one of the questions she asked me on Ben's behalf was, we were going to use the $10,000 on this list for City Hall upgrades. I think we've been able to accomplish that within some of the budgeted resources we already had. So Sevda said, can we move that over to the main M&O shop? So when I say building energy upgrades, right now that's pointed over at the M&O shop. So that would be upgrading as Ben just described. I would be happy to talk with Ben and Sevda. Since we have some funds to redirect, we may have an opportunity to spend a little bit more over there if that's a good use of the funds. So I think we can adapt in that small way there if that makes good sense.
John?
Just say, I understand what Councilmember Witten is saying. It would be nice to know the next building we're making. If we really do make sure that before the plans are laid out, we say, okay, what are all the little things that we can put in there, all the lead things that we would need to make that as sustainable as possible. And it does seem like a missed opportunity, especially with the maintenance shed. We could get in there and do some stuff in there. So maybe next time around, before it leaves the gate.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Then do I have a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the contract with O'Brien and Company in the amount of $20,000 and to administer a $5,000 contingency on the project?
So moved.
It's been moved and?
Second.
Second, very good.
Thank you, John.
Any further discussion? Mark?
I was just going to comment, one of the other new buildings that's going to be a public building here in town is the conversion of the old library into a teen center. It's possible that the teens themselves would have some ideas, or there's some feature or technology that we could look at there that would help save either us or the Boys and Girls Club some money in operation.
That's a great comment. Yeah. Tom?
Along the same lines, I'd just like to go back to my earlier comment that we have a lot of bright people in this city, and I think it'd be a good opportunity to engage some of them in terms of a focus group about how we move forward with this thing.
And that's already in the scope of the work to get them engaged also.
Good. Okay.
One more question.
Nancy? Oh, and then John.
What was the public participation piece of this puzzle? Is it going to be roundtable discussions, hopefully? We have so many talented people in the community. It would be really neat, I mean, with all the professional skills as well as the interest and passionate people, it'd be really neat to see some public events where it's not just a 3-minute comment, but roundtable type discussions or something to pick their brains and see what people can contribute.
I'll ask the camera to specifically respond to that, but those are good comments, Nancy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we specifically wrote the scope of work generally enough to accommodate a whole variety of different techniques. I think we need to select the techniques based on their effectiveness here. We have had some very good success with the dialogue table format, and I would suggest that we strongly consider that. So we'll come back to you with kind of an outline of our public involvement program and let you help us refine that at a future meeting.
Good. John?
Just one last comment. Obviously, in the economy that we're in right now, there's lots of companies that are looking for consulting work and other types of work, and I think the rule of thumbs that have applied in the past don't necessarily apply in today's marketplace. So when we look at contracts in the future, I'd be more inclined to have a competitive bid with a scope of work already stated, and if all 6 companies were capable of doing it, we might save the taxpayers some money in the future.
Okay, good comment. Are we ready for the question? Okay, all those in favor of authorizing the city manager to sign the contract with Bryan and Company, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? By your vote of 6-0, you have that authorization.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, next on the agenda, we're at council reports. And let's start with Councilmember James.
No report.
Councilmember Curley.
Only that I've been using the library every single day. It's outstanding. The customer service is amazing, and Charlie says the chairs could be just a tad more comfortable.
Well, I went to the library to take out a paperback book to take on a trip tomorrow, and I couldn't find one I liked. There was such a small selection of adult fiction. I'm hoping they enlarge that particular area. You certainly can order, but it may take you weeks or months to get the book you order. So I think they've done a great job for the teens and the children. Absolutely fantastic. But the adults are definitely not represented at the same level.
Well, they have a good selection of audiobooks on CD.
Yes, they do.
Well, as we get older and age in place, I suppose, and our vision goes, the audiobooks will be just perfect.
They're good for trips. You get a little audio.
Well, not if you're
CD
flying and
player.
don't have a noise player.
Okay, Tom, do you have a report?
Yeah, met this morning with the Chamber of Commerce, specifically Deb Sogi and Carla Benson, who were interested in what the city might be able to do to help them with some issues, and I've encouraged them to continue to talk to other members of the council. They were specifically interested in Sahali with the PGA coming up, and I mentioned that we have one of our council members, Mr. James, who's been kind of designated as a one-man point of contact on behalf of the council, so they will be calling him fairly shortly.
So is that the person I need to call if there's some traffic problem and the buses are not coming on the right time?
It's called a goodwill ambassador.
And parking. And parking.
Actually,
And
Ben,
bad
we're giving
parking.
them your phone number for that one, but no, seriously, they're interested in what they can do to work with the council in terms of perhaps gaining a little more visibility for Sammamish. Apparently, the PGA website already has a link to the Redmond Chamber of Commerce, so that kind of hurts. So there's some possible grounds for some activity here.
Yes.
There's a presentation on the February 16 that will be made to the City Council by the Sahali Golf Tournament organizers. To their credit, they've been working, this is our actually second go-around to do this thing. First go-around that we learned a lot from the traffic circulations. Those are the primary concern for the citizens in terms of where the people come in, how they go, what's the impact of their neighborhoods, not within Sahali, but just outside the Sahali too. So, and we also heard from Chamber that they wanted to figure out a way to get the buses routed such a way that at least the one shopping center, if not a one shopping center, multiple shopping centers be on the route. So this would be a good opportunity to have that discussion. I did ask the Pete to also coordinate with John since our retreat when the council made that direction. So stay tuned, and we will also post to John's phone numbers all over this website and in all the city flyers, that if anybody has any concerns and questions.
John, I'm sorry.
Put his cell number down as well as his home phone.
His name is James.
Mark, do you have a report?
I have a report, and I have a handout. Yesterday, I attended a brief meeting of the Growth Management Planning Council regarding policies that were requested by the City of Seattle for inclusion in the countywide planning policies. What I'm handing out is a draft from staff of the Puget Sound Regional Conference, trying to work on language that is general enough to satisfy Seattle's desire, but also general enough to keep the transit, traffic, transportation debates and policy questions with the transit and transportation committees of the Puget Sound Regional Council. This is only staff has been working on this, and this is an early draft, but it also is possible that Seattle won't find this language specific enough, because what they're really trying to achieve is to have a countywide policy that would focus traffic or transit bus funding to urban centers. Now, we are considered in the big scheme of things a large city, but we are not an urban center. Redmond's an urban center. Issaquah is not an urban center. And so this would actually have the effect, if Seattle got its way, of having very specific language that would pull transit money to circulate, for instance, between Redmond and Bellevue, or Redmond and Bellevue and Seattle, but not necessarily, if you can see, and the first one that talks about a bus system that links centers, provides circulation within the centers, and links to the non-center urban areas. So we're really coming third in this policy. And it's not that they're going to be very successful over time, but it is concerning that the wind is not at our backs and getting more transit here for Sammamish.
Mm-hmm. Nancy?
I've been on the Puget Sound Regional Council, as has Don, and the county planning policies have to be consistent with the multi-county planning policies. And Don can address this better than I can. But I don't think this meets the multi-county planning policies that say it goes not just to urban centers, but it connects from places sending to the urban centers. So, I think this is inconsistent and in conflict with that, and that somebody should look into that and make that point at the county level.
This did bring up a discussion amongst some of the outlying cities that are like Maple Valley, that are even farther out, that perhaps they need to have another funding source for transit. One of the things that Sammamish did over the last couple of years is get Issaquah, Sammamish, Redmond, and Microsoft to join together to help fund additional bus service. I think those outlying communities are realizing that they may have to do something, either to have a higher bus fare or to actually come up with some of the money to support having transit, so that you could commute from the like Black Diamond, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nancy's right. At PSRC, what we did do is change connectivity between centers to between centers and to centers. And then also they expanded the definition of centers to include, you have the major regional centers, and then also the center of various cities are considered centers in another definition. So,
well, that would be good, because that'd be helpful to
Mm-hmm.
us. But
So
this is just the latest thing that's happened, and so I thought I'd report.
So if you could, somebody could hand you the language, maybe Don could, because he's much more up on it than I am, but seems to me that would be real ammunition for you in terms of your...
Well, stay tuned, because Seattle abstained from approving or recommending the growth targets, the 2031 growth targets. And it's possible that this is going to get stickier before it gets ironed out.
good. Thank you, Mark. The mayor's report, I just came back from Olympia today, where I testified on 2 bills at the Senate Ways and Means Committee on city flexibility issues. For example, the real estate excise tax right now under RCW requires that it be used for capital projects and park capital projects. And one of the bills would loosen that up such that you could use the revenue from the real estate excise tax for maintenance of park projects and capital projects. So as the general fund revenues get smaller compared to the general fund expenses, you'll be able to transfer real estate excise tax revenues over into the general fund. So that's part of it. There are other flexibility issues where, well, for example, there's a 0.3% sales tax that the county could levy for criminal justice issues use, and that requires a vote of the people. One of the bills would allow the county to do it without a vote of the people for up to 5 years, and then they would have to take it to the vote. And that money would be distributed amongst, 60% would go to the county and 40% would go to the cities on a per capita basis, which would be very advantageous to Sammamish, since we don't really get much sales tax revenue. But if we take all the sales tax revenue in the county and dole it out per capita, we're going to get more than some of our neighboring cities in that regard. So the week before, last week, Ben and I went down to Olympia also for the Association of Washington Cities board meeting and legislative conference. And we heard from the governor and heard from various directors and also from a lot of the legislators. And then we made the rounds of some of the legislators from the 5th District and the 45th District, the two districts that cover Sammamish, and encouraged them on these various bills. It's interesting, one of the bills that has been introduced is a bill based on Sammamish's ordinance with regard to impact fees being paid at the time of the sale of the house rather than earlier on in the development. And we've, I think, gotten, and perhaps our city attorney could say definitely, I believe we have a legally sustainable program there whereby if you have a lien on the property, when the property sells on the closing statement, it will show that that impact fee gets paid through escrow. And
We actually implemented, Mr. Mayor, and we actually collected the money from escrow, and escrow dispersed the funds, so it's been working. Council's wisdom was right on that issue.
Great. A lot of the cities at that conference are very interested in that, and the bill that was introduced would require all cities to do that. And we didn't take a position. Association of Washington Cities took a position of not endorsing that and feeling it's a local option, that if a city wants to do it, they can. And here's a ordinance that we use that you can copy it if you want. Nancy.
One of the things I think we did is give the developer a choice as to when he does it. I mean, so we don't just, we say he can pay at time of sale, but as I recall, we made it as flexible as possible.
Mm-hmm.
If he wants to lock in the fee, he pays up earlier. Is that correct? I mean, what we were trying to do is flexibility to accommodate the needs of these.
Council wanted to be flexible because of the cash flow issues of the developers, and then developers wanted to basically seek an assistance of the city. From the taxpayer standpoint, the council felt that the impact is not there till the home is actually occupied, so this probably makes sense to collect the fee at the time of the home is occupied. And we developed a process in which that the developer actually put a lien, voluntary lien, on the property, and during the escrow, that the escrow company would ask the city to release the lien, and then we'll get our check. And the system has been working well, and in answer to your question is that we can't lock in the particular fee. The fee is to be at the time when the payment is made, whatever that fee is.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
That by paying earlier, he locks it at that rate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other issue I wanted to bring up is council office hours. Last year, we had office hours every Wednesday, almost every Wednesday, from 5 to 6:30. And at our retreat, we decided to try this year on Mondays, because then people, if they have a question with regard to the agenda that's coming up on Tuesday, they can come to office hours and have a dialogue with one or more council members ahead of time and be prepared, and maybe not even have to come to our council meeting if they get the right answers. So the decision was the first and third Mondays of the month from 5:30 to 6:30. Now, we're just announcing it now, so obviously nobody came yesterday. And my suggestion is we continue the Wednesdays, since next Monday, I believe, or the Monday after is President's Day.
15th, yeah.
Yeah, so I think this month I would suggest we continue on the Wednesdays for the next 3 Wednesdays or 4 Wednesdays. By the way, I can do it this Wednesday, but I can't next Wednesday. So if we could get a sign up. And the other thing we had agreed is that Lola would be a reference source so that people could sign up, so the public would know which council members will be, or hopefully there, on which Mondays. Any comments on that? So I'd like to make sure we have the Wednesdays covered this month. So after, you can check in with Lola and sign up for the Wednesdays.
And I think the Councilmember Curley would like to do it Friday afternoon, 4 o'clock.
Okay, that's,
I really hurt you, didn't I, Ben? I really hurt you.
that's the mayor's report. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple reports. One of them is related to a Councilmember James' question, and that is related to the gravel parking lot there. So I have our Deputy City Manager prepared to give you a report on that one. Pete is just walking in.
James thinks it's all about location, but it's really all about timing. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Recently, we are very pleased to have the library join us here at the Sammamish Commons. And when that happened, some of our existing concerns with parking have become more known to us. And as soon as just a moment, the right one. There you go. Here's the background. Parking in general at the Commons. Both the City Hall and the library meet the current code for parking requirements based on the size of the building. When the library construction was in place, we worked together quite cooperatively to make sure that there was still parking for Commons users, as well as space for the library contractor to set up, do equipment staging, and put offices in place. And that was actually on some of what we might commonly call the Kelman land, directly to the west of the library site where they set up. This was clearly a temporary arrangement, and it was a part of their building permit issuance that when the project was completed, they were to restore the land. That includes replacing the fence, putting landscaping back in, and hydro seeding the ground back to a grassy condition. But there's also an opportunity that's presented by that equipment staging site, and that's the potential for additional parking for the Commons. That would include the library, City Hall, and the many functions that we actually operate here. It would also potentially be available for some of the overflow needs of the nearest high school and a couple of religious institutions that occasionally use our lot also. That's what I would call the present opportunity. What we're looking at tonight are some options to discuss with you. We are asking for a yes or no decision from you on whether to proceed or not. And rather than call this 4 options, there are really 3 plus. The plus is if you construct a parking lot in that equipment staging area that was used by the library contractor of 40 spaces or less, the administrative processes are a little bit easier. Simply put, the State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA, does not apply. If you build 41 or more spaces, SEPA does apply. I mention this strictly as a point of information. Frankly, SEPA is not an impediment to the staff or proceeding with this project if you desire. So we're going to show you some slides here of 3 possible options. Please recognize the final option may look slightly different. These are conceptual only. So 56, or rather 52, let me orientate you here. The top of this slide is to the north. Directly to the right or to the east is the library, and this is the area that would use less than the total area consumed by the equipment staging area. Again, this is a concept only to show you how it might be laid out. For purposes of these 3 exhibits tonight, we're using parking stalls that are 9.5 feet wide, and there are no compact vehicle spots.
Good.
I think even a compact vehicle owner would appreciate that in terms of reduced door dings.
And dings.
So that's what it might look like with 52 spots. On your left side or the west side, you see we'd also be doing landscaping. That's a part of your existing land development codes where we'd be required to do both trees and shrubs around any such facility.
Pete, can you make sure that when we do trees and shrubs with the vista to the west, that they don't grow up and block the vista to the west?
We could attempt that with a certain type of tree that generally gets to a certain height, and then, frankly, they die.
Good.
But those are in existence in western U.S. cities and other places, so sure, we could do that. We've also had comments from a number of the library users. They would like to see something to screen the library view shed from the house below. So we try to find a happy medium there. What it might look like was 76 parking spaces. For the most part, this would use up the entire area of the equipment staging area that was done by the library's contractor. And if you wanted to go slightly higher, we could move outside that area and go to something that would be 102 parking spaces. Again, this is conceptual only, and the far left-hand or far western row of parking spots would actually be outside the current equipment storage area. So these are concepts. A couple of things to think about. What we think would be most valuable, if you wish to proceed, is to come together with a 30% design package for you. I will note that this is not currently in the Public Works Department work plan, and they do not have the capacity to take on this additional work this year. We have no budgeted dollars in 2011, although we, if upon your direction, would look for them. And the 30% design step would come back with preliminary costs for you, the council, to consider in your 2011-2012 budget. In other words, a decision night to yes, we want to look at this further, is not a decision to go ahead to the ultimate project. It simply gives you what would be the build-out might look like. Our best estimate, and this was a quick internal estimate today, is to get to a 30% design with cost estimates, which would also include a traffic analysis as required by law, would be about $30,000. So, if it's budgeted, and if we moved ahead, we would complete design early in 2011. It would go up for competitive bid, and we would build it. What we're asking for you tonight is, if you wish to proceed, that is, yes, we want to invest around $30,000 and come up with a 30% design, what particular size are you interested in? Again, those are 3 concepts and concepts only. Would you allow us the flexibility to look at either pervious or impervious and give you kind of a price difference in the two? And let me describe that for you a moment. Any pervious surface, and that includes a gravel surface under your stormwater standards, is going to require a fairly substantial investment in stormwater management efforts. However, if you go to an impervious, or rather a pervious surface, pervious asphalt, pervious concrete, some sort of an eco-block where the grass could grow up in between, you can reduce some, but not all of your stormwater requirements by 50%. Right now, without that 30% design engineering, we don't know which one's the most cost advantageous to you. And last but not least, do you want to put lights in the lot? It is the staff recommendation that you do light it so that it's useful at night. And that's what we're looking for tonight from you, council, some direction, and we're open for discussion.
Okay. Anybody want to start? John.
I'd like to have the library do a head count for us and see how many people are coming in there every single day, just to get some idea of the. I mean, I see at 11 o'clock in the morning, there's people circling, waiting for spots, which is a good thing. How many spots are presently there?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I can tell you that they meet the code. There are fewer spots there than the old library site. And we've been working with the library. Again, it's an extremely cooperative relationship. They have just as today created and posted some additional signs to encourage people to use their underground lot. We think that part of the problem was that many people with large vehicles were a little timid to drive under there. We even measured one of our large SUV police vehicles with a light bar on top, and it goes in quite easily. So size isn't a particular concern here. It just seems to be it's not visible. Right. The library's now stepped up to do their part in publicizing that.
Yeah, I'd like to know how many were in the other library.
About 80.
Was it 80?
About 80.
And how was it there? Was it okay?
Most
people
of the
circling
time,
around, they weren't, no?
No, they had some meetings. When they had meetings in that one room,
Was it a mess?
sometimes it almost filled up, I saw.
Okay.
I think that's about right.
Cameron
Our
knows.
about right or approximately right number is 63 spots, 20 on the surface and 43 underground.
Over here.
Yes.
63 right now, and they had 80 at the old one?
Roughly 80.
Yeah.
Plus or minus 2.
Okay.
I recall the old library lot being quite full an awful lot of the times as well. So I would tend to err on the high side here rather than do a minimal project. Whether we do the full 100 and some spaces, Pete, I don't know. I kind of like the angle parking because you can directionalize your traffic then, which eliminates a lot of problems.
Notice we gave that to you as an option because angle parking, you can use narrower driving lanes if you make it a one-way system.
Other comments? John?
I happened to be there for the ribbon cutting for the new library, and it was packed, and that's good news. But at the same time, we have other events coming back to the city, such as the farmers market and other events. So where parking is tight today, it will only get worse when the weather improves. So I think it's worth our investigating what our options are. It would be a shame if we restored the site and then had to undo that at some future date because we realized it was we didn't have the space. So I think there's an opportunity here to take a look at it, and I will vote my support in favor of this.
Okay, Mark?
I'd like to see a site plan that showed me more of our City Hall campus when we look at this next time. But I support the idea of there being a need for overflow parking. Not only with the library, but also with City Hall having events, combined with the library, combined with farmers market and other events, but also combined with overflow that I see from the high school across the street. A lot of people do like to park over here, and although I would prefer they parked on the side of the street with the high school if that's where they're going, it does seem like we're cramped for parking here, and so we should investigate what the costs are. But I will say that don't be surprised if the number is pretty big, given the storm drainage basin that we're in that requires very intensive storm drainage requirements, that it could be quite expensive to do this. And I'd certainly want to have lights, because any public parking space where we're providing it and encouraging people to use it, I would want people to feel as safe as any other parking space that they might have here on campus.
Nancy?
Well, I have a couple comments. First of all, I remember the opening when there was this blue truck that pulled up late with somebody who was very important to the opening ceremonies. And it was a full lot, but he found a space because it was so narrow, but he had trouble parking his truck. But anyway. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
The mayor's wife was holding the space for me.
One of the staffers actually had to repark his car so the one next to him could get out. But next, I do support, I think we are underserved in terms of parking spaces, and I'm glad there's a real rapport and reciprocity in terms of the church and the schools and the city. But I think we need more parking. So in general, I support the idea of looking at this. I would hope it would be an interim thing where we might want to make it permanent, we might not, but as the town center develops out, we may want to reclaim this for a different use. So I think that's really important, is to focus on the fact that if the town center is going to have a garage somewhere, we may want to use the Kelman property for a different public use. So that's one concern, and if so, when we get to 30% design, do we want to spend a fortune on an interim lot? Okay. The other thing is, I'm concerned about the environmental circumstances of this property. It's at the headwaters of a Class 1 wetland, which is the headwaters of Ebright Creek. And I think we need to be not just cost conscious of pervious versus impervious, but we also need to be very conscious of the environmental consequences. And I don't care if this is SEPA exempt because of an ordinance we passed over my objection last year. 40 parking spaces can have a huge impact if your water drainage issues aren't adequately addressed. I'm sure staff will get into that anyway, but I just want to focus it that from my standpoint, I really do want to make sure that we do a top-notch environmentally friendly project, which we've done elsewhere. In many of ours, where like at City Hall, we looked at all these experimental types of surfaces for to see how they functioned. And as I recall, the Grasscrete was the one we didn't want to use because it failed. Isn't that the one that failed? But anyway, so I'm in favor of parking. Again, I think we need to think in terms of short-term, long-term. And to do that, I think we need to get a handle on the costs.
Okay, let's come to some conclusion here. First, do we have a consensus that if we do a parking lot, it should be lighted?
Yes.
Everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, do we have a consensus that we should go forward with 30% design on the parking lot?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
On the options.
And the options itself, do we have a consensus that it should be more than 40 spaces? So we don't, to address Nancy's issue, it does require a SEPA issue.
So we have 63 now, 40 would take us to 103.
52 to, 40 more would go, but I think I heard a lot of comments, and we've also seen it in city events, even 102 more is not going to handle a lot of the events that we have on the plaza. So do we want to give direction at this meeting whether it would be 40, 52, 76, or 102? Nancy?
I think we need more information. I mean, I'm not ready to make that decision.
Well, maybe we can
Okay.
do a 30% with several options.
Can we do that without the price going up?
Pardon?
Can we do that without the price going up? I mean, I'd like to look at the price tags on these things.
Yeah.
John says yes.
Yeah? Oh, good.
Tom?
I'd like to see more than one option priced. And
Right.
if we have to limit to a couple, let's start with the more capable concepts and then drop down till we get to the bottom.
Mr. Mayor, we got the direction, so I need to figure out now how do we fit in this, the objectives, and what do we need to take off the plate, so I'll work through that internally and then come back to you.
Okay.
We'll get this thing going. Obviously, I don't have an excess capacity to do this thing right now, but we'll just figure out some way to squeeze it in without taking critical project that was given to us by the council.
Good, thank you.
We'll figure out.
Is that the end of your report?
Yes?
It's
Oh,
end
I
of
have
my
one more
part.
report,
Your
so
report.
that's end of the Pete's report.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
The Ravenhill annexation that we had told you previously that we were in the hole $4,000, and we told you that that's within the margin of error. The council proceeded with that thing, and then since then we have a better information. And looks like we're actually in about a $2,000 positive. And the difference comes from is that about a $6,000 the estimates, thanks to the Chief Collins, Wes Collins, right after the council meeting, we were asked to give them specific informations. We didn't ask them prior to the meeting, unfortunately. We made an estimate, and I'll take responsibility for that one. So since then, they provided us information. So this is what the real story is with the Ravenhill. Currently, District 10 collects $22,395 from the Ravenhill residents. We had assumed that if they annex the city would have to pay $16,217. What we understand is that the District 10 actually collects this amount and pays $10,047 instead of a $16,000. That's what we estimated to be. So the numbers that
We made a mistake in our estimate.
yeah. So, but I don't want the council to think we're going to make money out of this thing. This is still within the margin of error, but it's $4,000 negative to $2,000 positive. It's just that I wanted to make that correction for you guys.
Good, thank you.
All right.
That's the end of your report?
We will have a detailed report Friday at 4 o'clock also, so if you want to come and join me with you, Councilmember Curley.
I always check at 4:45. Nancy?
In the past, we've had scheduled joint meetings with the City of Issaquah Council and with the City of Redmond Council, and also with our legislators.
We are working on that, and actually, Mayor and I heard that in our meeting in Olympia. We had a joint meeting with the Redmond folks, and Kirkland folks actually joined us in that meeting too. Redmond Council would like to have a joint meeting. I asked the Melanie to try to coordinate with their city clerk to find out what is best fit in their calendar, and we will pick up a date and let you know.
Thank you.
Good.
You're welcome.
Anything else for the good of the order? No executive session tonight, right?
No, not tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Curley, anything for the good of the order?
Other than the fact that it's just before 8 o'clock, Don.
I thought you'd say that. Okay, we're adjourned.